Welcome to the Wilmette Park District Regular Board of Commissioners meeting for Monday, August 14th. I will call this meeting to order and ask for roll call.
Commissioner Leahy.
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
Commissioner Murdoch.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Goebel.
Here.
Commissioner Duffy.
Here.
Commissioner Kozlowskis.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. First up, we have the consent agenda this evening.
Oh, that's me. I apologize. I move to approve the consent agenda of August 14th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners, a copy of which is to be attached to and become a permanent part of the minutes of this meeting.
I'll second.
Go ahead.
I'll second.
I do have one item to pull from the consent agenda. I'd like to remove 2.3, the minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting on July 24th. As I discussed with you, Steve, I think there was a few discussion items that were missing regarding the discussion around going to the zoning board for the application for the paddle hut. And so I'd like the minutes to be reflective of that and updated
We
for
will
the
revise those and bring them back
for the
next
next
month.
meeting. Otherwise, I'm good. Any other discussion on consent?
No.
I'm comfortable with that.
Move to approve as revised.
All right. Commissioner Leahy.
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier.
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel.
Yes.
Commissioner Duffy.
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowskis.
Yes.
Consent agenda is approved as revised.
Thank you. Communications and correspondence is in the packet per usual. We continue to talk about this item that has not much substance. We acknowledge that it's there, and we have read the correspondence. Thank you for those that are using public comment at willpark.org. That seems to be working well in terms of repeating redundancy. And this brings us to 4.0, public comment and recognition of visitors. I anticipate we have a lot of folks that are interested in sharing with the board this evening. I will explain up front that while we do have several presentations on the agenda this evening, we will adhere to our traditional public comment process. We certainly invite any and all questions that you have regarding the presentations coming tonight. Please state those in your public comment. We will do our very best to take note of those and have our consultants, our experts, address as many of those as possible during the presentations. We traditionally start on this side of the room. Is there anyone over here that would like to address the board this evening? Can I see a show of hands?
No one. All right.
On this side of the room.
One.
Okay, we'll start in the front row.
Good evening. My name is Beth Butcher. I'm a Wilmette resident. I've appeared before this board on many occasions. I am here tonight along with several other Wilmette residents to make a oral request as well as the request that we put in writing to you for a special board meeting to publicly discuss the LANGDON Park revetment and beach access plan and its current status. We request that this special board meeting take place before any further action or vote is taken by this board to authorize final plans for construction. We understand that the board may feel that it's ready to move forward towards final decisions, but the public and Wilmette residents are currently in a great state of confusion as to what exactly the board is contemplating at Langdon. They have questions and information that they would like to present and receive answers. The public and Wilmette residents are entitled to discuss this matter with the board. While the board does provide a very short opportunity for public comment at its meetings, the contemplated construction and issues involved, including ADA, are very complex, and planning for this project has occurred over a very long and often interrupted time period. Therefore, holding a special board meeting to allow an informative, pertinent, and fair process for an exchange of ideas and communication between the public and the Wilmette Park District is not only warranted, it's a smart thing to do. There is no harm to this project proceeding in a timely manner if a special board meeting is held in the near future to discuss all aspects of the Langdon Shoreline project in one setting where proper notice and hearing can take place. The public in the Park District will all benefit from this special board meeting. The Wilmette Park District not only has the authority to honor this request, there has been much prior precedent within the history of the Park District to do so, especially when requested by its residents. I I believe Alyssa will speak more in detail as to why there is this compelling need to have the special board meeting and the time frame over which a lot of discussion has taken place. I will respond to the idea of precedent. I believe Mr. Murdoch seemed to have consulted with, I don't know if it's the board's attorney or whoever, indicating that it was not, I can't speak for him, but there were a series of emails and things that were conveyed to me over the weekend and text messages that it was not legally allowable because of it would set a precedent. I can tell you I have participated in many special board meetings through the years, as well as regular board meetings, not only before this board, but before the village board in Wilmette. This Langdon property has been really essential and sensitive issue to many people in the village of Wilmette. You are quite aware of, many of you may not have been living in Wilmette at the time, but in 2015 there was a referendum which definitely indicated the importance of this property to the people of Wilmette and how it is managed and how it is handled in the future. Alyssa will speak next. I did want to convey that to them. I did. Dean will speak after that. Amy Boyer would like to speak. She's home with COVID or possibly, so she has yielded her time to me to come back up. If that's okay, are there any questions of me right now?
No, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and proceed.
Hello, Alyssa Morganti, 1330 Sheridan Road. Is it loud enough, everybody? Louder, okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
You can't, she doesn't want you touching it.
All right. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Okay, the reason I want a special meeting for Langdon is because the opportunity for public comment on Langdon was likely conducted via Zoom during the pandemic. Attendance was likely very poor, and for those who listened, it would be very difficult to understand the complexity of the site, the 30-foot change in elevation from the top of the bluff to the water's edge, and the materials being considered on a small computer screen and without the ability to ask for clarification. This is why I feel a special meeting is required. The proposed changes at Langdon are significant, and we residents should have the opportunity to voice our opinions, ask questions, and get answers in a dialogue format so that we can understand the full extent of the work being proposed. This project poses very significant changes to the park. There are a lot of residents here that enjoy Langdon and want to know what's happening. You have asked us to pose all our questions tonight. However, this is hard to do when there are now two new schemes being presented, so we don't know all the choices yet. To be clear, we are not advocating that we unequivocally do not want ADA compliance. We just want the ability to learn what assumptions have been made on our behalf regarding the future of Langdon. The 30-foot change in elevation from 609 at the top of the bluff to the current elevation at the water's edge of 579 is, and with only 30 feet of beach from water's edge to the edge of the bluff, this is a significant design challenge. It feels like a challenge of trying to stuff 10 pounds of potatoes into a 5-pound bag, and the bag, or the 30 feet of beach, will get bigger and smaller in every given season. I appreciate the analysis in the packet from WT Consultants that they have done on the feasibility of the plan's ability to meet IAC compliance. However, there are more critical questions WT can be asked and hopefully answered, which are: does it make practical sense, given the terrain, to design a 100% IAC compliant to 100% IAC compliance standards? 2, would using 2 applicable IAC exemptions in the code book would it allow for more creative and sustainable solutions that still enables easy access? Can WT act as a consultant for the Wilmette Park District to explore with the village and Smith Group a feasible design solution everyone can live with that respects the unique environmental conditions of Langdon. Residents want to engage and learn about the new access path parameters and would like to see a well-developed graphic presentation with a photorealistic rendering of what the design solution will look like at Langdon.
Alyssa, thank you for your time.
I have one sentence left. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Photorealistic renderings is where a design scheme is superimposed and drawn onto the actual photo of Langdon. This will cost about $500. This is a small price to pay for good communication and peace of mind that the right solution is being executed, especially when a $2 million budget is being allocated for the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For those of you that have emailed this information and put it in the public packet, we have read it. So I don't remember if that was before or after the packet was published, but just to be clear, some of this is sounding familiar, which is fine, but just so that you understand for your 3 minutes, if you would like to use it in a way that's different than what you've written, that would be acceptable as well. Are you going next, Dean? Okay.
Testing. Am I okay?
A little closer, as close as you can.
Adjust this portion of the mic, Dean, and anyone else who wishes to speak, this part you can adjust, not the stem.
Dean Lindsay, 808 Chestnut, 22 years. A special Langdon meeting, as Beth has described, is requested tonight. And we think it will help residents and the board create the best permanent beach access and natural landscape design for our tiny Langdon Park and Beach. A special Langdon meeting may also help restore public trust in the Langdon design decision process and a willingness to accept decisions about Langdon's future. Many residents, friends, and neighbors who I see behind me tonight ask me for my thoughts about Langdon. To understand the complex design plans, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the permitting process between the park and the village, and who's for or against what and why. Frankly, I try to explain it as a design professional, but it is constantly changing, like the lake levels. Even tonight's presentation has 2 new designs that until a few days ago nobody knew was coming except you, the board. Will the 2 designs be easier to understand? Maybe yes, if you're a designer or an engineer. But for most residents, proposed landscape designs need to show realistic imagery with perspective, like a color photograph. Show us exactly how the bluff will be altered to anchor a cement path, how the vegetation would change or disappear, how to climb over the revetment rocks to the water, how much beach is left with each design. One neighbor said to me, Langdon will end up looking like Gilson, while trying to imagine a proposed design on the bluff. Show us better imagery to compare designs so we can understand what looks like Gilson really means. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Smith Group tonight is attempting to solve a very complex design and engineering problem at Langdon, which is essentially take a tiny 3-acre pocket park with a very steep bluff 30 feet above the lake and a tiny 500 feet beach. Abide by restrictive engineering codes established by law as we interpret them. Then literally get us to the beach. No loopholes. With these aggressive goals and constraints, the final proposed Langdon path design may eventually become debris in the lake if the excavation of the bluff with its loose sandy soils give way to further erosion beneath an inflexible concrete slab for a path. Nobody wants that, but the potential is there. A special Langdon meeting seems to be the right thing for me this evening, to get everybody in the same room, on the same page, sharing their information, their experience, asking questions, and discussing environmental impacts and the most respectful, responsible strategies for Langdon. It's meant to help create something natural and beautiful at Langdon, which represents stewardship of our precious lakefront resources. Above all, it should help us do no harm. Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of Amy Boyer,
Do you have a statement you're reading for?
no,
her?
I'm not reading a statement. I understand that from an email I received from you this afternoon, and I've conveyed it on to other members of the group, And people here in the audience are also asking the same kind of questions of, you're indicating no decisions will be made tonight. The reason why a special board meeting is still needed even after tonight, regardless of what questions we can and can't present to you, the reason why it's necessary is there are other people who could not attend tonight. It was very short notice that we got where we could get people here. The forum that you've been using for this particular type of situation over the last couple of years, especially when we do not have a local newspaper dedicated to covering these events, behooves you to give us the opportunity to have that special meeting. The communication is what is most important. Wilmette residents have a high expectation of what our government and our officials will do for us and what I believe you want to do. But I'm really concerned that a lot of the emails and text messages and things that came to us from the moment we sent that email in on Thursday saying we would be here tonight, many attempts to dissuade us from even attending, from presenting the request for a special board meeting. And while I'm hearing no decisions have been made, it seems to me I'm hearing, oh, well, some of us have talked and we're not going to allow a special board meeting. I would hope that is not the case. I would hope that you really take this into consideration. I'm going to turn and ask the people in the audience to raise their hand if they feel that this request that I am making if they are in support of it. Okay, I don't know if the cameras are showing this for the benefit of the audience at home, but it looks like to me, if you put your hands up, I'm seeing a lot of people here, and almost everybody's hand is up. I'm not quick on counting this, but I would say that the majority of the people that are here are in favor of this. The majority of the people that I spoke to who could not attend tonight really want to have a special board meeting. I get asked questions all the time. I'm on the beach. People come to me. I shouldn't be trying to explain this to them, but I am trying to convey information. But we also have other facts that we feel you are not getting. I don't know why you're not getting it, and this group has been trying repeatedly. I believe the times that we have appeared before you and
The 3
presented
minutes are
information to you,
Right.
it has been proven to be accurate. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Sorry, folks, I've got a clock in front of me and a clock next to me, and they're not always in sync here. Are there other folks that would like to address the board this evening?
Hello, my name is Fred Wilson at 1330 Sheridan Road. I am an architect by profession, and I think the request for the board additional meeting, when I design with clients, I like to see all the facts, all the parameters that are out there. I feel you're the designers, along with Smith Group, that are presenting these ideas to us, which, as Alyssa mentioned, are very complex. We are your client. You just saw 50 people, 50 of your constituents that raised their hand that they would like more information to be more a part of the process, not come up here and spend, whatever it is, 15, 20 minutes, every 3 minutes at a time saying, and then watch the board just sort of turn a blind eye to what we've all been saying. I was here for the Lakeview Center presentation, and I want to say 40 or 50 of us came up here and said our piece, a lot of good arguments, and then the board unanimously voted in favor of it. And I just feel that we don't understand some of the parameters that you're dealing with, whether they're mechanical vehicles wanting to get access down to the beach, or why you're insisting on an 8-foot wide path when a 6-foot wide, more human scale path would feel more appropriate. I think it's a design opportunity that you guys, I think, are looking at it as more of a functional way to get from point A to point B. This should be a poetic solution to a very poetic, very naive pocket park. The materials that you're choosing, the way you can meander down through the path with beautiful retaining walls and a stone path parkway with stone steps. I know it's not ADA compliant, but a lot of your schemes are beyond the 8%, which is the maximum for an ADA compliant ramp. You can go up to 10% on a renovation, but this is new construction. And I feel that the word exception or exemption that you're using with the park being 0.4 miles away, bringing vehicles across, is not a loophole. It's an exception for a reason, and I don't think that this park can handle a 500-foot long, 8-foot wide path. Again, I just want to stress, this is a design opportunity for you to all enhance the park, not to destroy the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay.
Walter Keats. I've sent emails before about the ADA thing. First, I'd say I support having a special board meeting. But the ADA thing, my concern is that we keep talking about ADA compliance as opposed to ADA accessibility. I think part of what we've been talking about is the accessibility of a path. Compliance, as you agree, you are in compliance with the law. And if the law says you don't need to make it ADA accessible, then you still are in compliance. That's not a loophole, that's not an exception, that's just the law. So one of the things that disturbed me in seeing the ADA presentation in the packet was that they didn't seem to address that question, several questions. One was, by being less than a half a mile from Gilson, which is ADA accessible and ADA compliant, if that is adequate. They didn't mention that at all, and that's unfortunate because we've been talking about this for months now, and that was one of the things that have been raised. The other was questions of funding. I mean, what 20% of the project, if all of a sudden you're spending more than 20% of the project to make it ADA accessible, then that's also, you don't have to do it. I mean, nobody's trying to make ADA a punishment or whatever. And I think I would bet everybody in here supports ADA compliance. So the question is, do we need to make this park ADA accessible down to the beach? And that's what I hope we'll hear from the consultants tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving back farther in this section, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I'm Carol Debo, 1600 Washington, Wilmette resident for 35 years. I will be honest, I wasn't tracking this, wasn't aware that this was happening while we were all dealing with a pandemic. I only became aware of it a couple months ago, talking to Alyssa. I don't understand, really, as I look at the packet, I didn't get what was going on. I asked Alyssa to walk me over there this weekend. I think Fred's point that it is a sweet pocket of a beach is the truth. And what little I know, I run an acting school, I'm not an architect. I'm speaking for the residents who really don't know about this going on, and I'm speaking to the residents who don't understand. So I encourage all of you, I'm asking you, to please vote for a special meeting, and let's get the word out. We're right, we don't have a newspaper that follows this or covers this, and it affects everybody. So I'm just simply asking that we pause and help educate those of us who are just getting on board. I would like to talk to my neighbors about it. I started scrambling yesterday. Can you come to this? Can you come to this? It's just not the way we should do things. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Debo. I'm at 1600 Washington. As Carol mentioned, we're longtime residents, former owners of the Wilmette Theater, now in your capable hands. The point I want to make, and I've done a lot of work in municipal government, is if I'm not mistaken, the last proposals came to the committee a whole sometime, I would say late June, and maybe right around 4th of July. And here we are in August. So we're in the middle of the summer. The idea that we would have adequate time to digest a new proposal or ideas of a proposal at this time doesn't seem to make sense. So I don't want to be redundant to all the very wise thoughts and analysis that was done by the people here tonight. But I would really urge, when you think about what is the downside of having this special meeting versus the upside of pushing something through quickly. So that's my recommendation, and I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I believe you, sir.
Good evening. My name's Joe Lunkus. I'm a 37-year resident of Wilmette. I live in the 800 block of Park Avenue. I had written the board an email concerning the ordinary high water mark. The presumption of this path is it's going to end up on a beach. I think that's an erroneous presumption. I was looking at the SMITHGROUP's diagrams and also doing research with the Army Corps of Engineers, and there's three statistics you need to understand. The ordinary high water mark noted on the plans that they have is 581 feet above sea level. The low water datum, Army Corps of Engineer, another statistic they use is 577.5 feet above sea level. The average height of Lake Michigan is 579 feet. When I look at your plans, plan number one, you have a kind of a circuitous path that goes all the way to the north, but there is a stairway going down to the water. That stairway on the SMITHGROUP's plan lands at 579 feet. So what that suggests is half of the time the stairs are going to lead down into water, not to a beach. Langdon really doesn't have a beach that exists all the time. Probably 50% of the time I've been in Wilmette, there's been no beach at Langdon because the water level is high. 50% of the time it was lower. Several years back when the referendum was going on, the lake water was extraordinarily low. There was a large expansive beach and everyone loved it. Last few years, you can walk in front of Langdon without walking in the water. So as you prepare these plans to dig through the bluff and lay a path down, what are you laying the path down to? To deposit people in the water 50% of the time. So we'll have path closed due to high water. When you look at the SMITHGROUP's elevations, the highest level is to the south end of the Langdon Beach, at the very south end boundary. And I could go into all that, but I don't think the trustees here or the SMITHGROUP have done an honest assessment of where this path would end and how often would, quote, the beach be accessible to the residents of the community. So I think the trustees really need to go back and do their homework, because if you look at some of the planned options that you have, you're just depositing people into the lake 50+% of the time. And it's great to look at the designs and get all enthusiastic about what it could be, but a very fundamental fact here has been overlooked: the level of the lake.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there was one or two more hands. Okay.
Alan Golden, 2516 Laurel Lane, 30-year plus resident of the village. I actually wasn't going to speak tonight, but I would like to lend my support to a special meeting and remind the board that there is precedent for this. Back in the early 90s, there was a massive kerfuffle about the community playfield and the redesign of the community playfield. The board, to their credit, held 3 special meetings, as a matter of fact. Some of you may remember, some of you may not. You may not have been in the village. I think, Mike, you were in the village back then, weren't you?
I remember.
You remember. And again, I give the board at the time credit for doing that because it gave the public a chance to come out, speak with the board in a dialogue back and forth, and get their questions answered in real time, as opposed to waiting X number of days for email or giving comment prior to all of the discussion, which is a little bit like, shoot, ready, aim. It's not quite in the right order. But I would highly recommend and encourage the board to have that special meeting. And I echo the thoughts of my neighbors. There's no harm. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Susanna F. I live at 808 Ashland. I've been there since 1996. I just wanted to make a very brief comment about the board's interaction with the community and to support having a special meeting. And the reason is I have been, because of where I live especially, but I've been very interested in Langdon since I came. I was involved, so to speak, in a small way in the referendum. And so I'm not actively involved, but I try to keep alert about what's happening. A month or so ago, I got something in the mail inviting me to participate in a survey. There were some materials that I could look over. I'm a mathematician by training. I'm, pretty smart, but I'm not a design engineer. I'm not an architect. I was trying to understand those drawings, but I was having difficulty doing it. And the survey had two questions. Did I support, I think, I may not be quoting it exactly, did I support a long path or a short path? I was dumbfounded. And really, that's the essence of my comment, because I think the community does need good renderings of what is being proposed. And it's a matter of very serious concern to those of us in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Hi, my name is Joe Zurcher. I've lived in town for 41 years. Just wanted to say, it's obvious to everyone that the charm of this park is that it's small. It's pretty much all green in the front end. And you have a bluff, you have sand, and you have the lake. It's as close to nature as we have. And I think it's a glimpse of what the shoreline looked like decades ago. And so everyone wants to hang on to that. And this meeting has brought out everything that it's a small park. It's going to be difficult to get an ADA compliant path. We don't want to pave over all this beauty. It's going to be hard to do. And so it's obvious to me, with all that's going on, that we really do need this meeting. It's ineluctable. There's just too much going on and too hard to thread the needle without lots more work and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is that the end of folks that wanted to address the board this evening? Okay. Thank you all for your time and for your comments. That will conclude public comment, and we'll move into the executive director's report.
Great, thank you. Langdon seems to be the topic of the day, so we'll start with Langdon. On Friday, we were in receipt of kind of word from the Village of Wilmette that they were all set with the materials we had provided them and that they would be issuing our permit today for the temporary access for Langdon Park, which they did. We've been in contact with the contractor who provided the cost estimate to do the work, provided them the permit, getting them processed with the village to be licensed to do the work, and scheduling the work as soon as we possibly can. Speaking with people at the construction company, they understand how much we, the village, the community, everyone wants this to get done as quickly as possible, so they're moving as fast as they can. Moving on from there, the rest of my Langdon portion of my report is really about the presentations that we're about to receive, and so I don't need to belabor the point, but we're going to start with Smith Group with a presentation that is very focused on kind of the landscape concepts and approach that they would apply, but also goes through various options, including 2 new ones that came from prior discussions. This board asked Smith Group to look at alternative materials beyond the paved materials, and that's where one of the options comes from. That's option 3 in the slide deck, and then option 4 is kind of a reworking of option 2 that connects to the existing path within the park, that connects to the playgrounds to change kind of the calculations around how much slope can be within the path, because it in essence makes a longer path. And then once they're done, WT will present about their review and their site visit regarding Langdon and compliance with the applicable codes and statutes and laws, and then I'm sure we'll have a discussion with plenty of questions from the board to make sure everyone fully understands all the information we're being provided. And then the only other couple of things in my report are on Wednesday evening, I'll be back in this room appearing before the Wilmette Zoning Board of Appeals regarding our modified zoning requests that we supplied to them on Friday. So that'll be here on Wednesday night. And a little bit of good news, we worked with Bike Walk Wilmette and Evanston Bike Club and an outside engineer that they suggested we work with, and submitted a grant request for Cook County through the Invest in Cook program to provide funds to offset the majority of a cost of a feasibility study to create a bike path that would connect Sheridan Road to basically McCormick and Green Bay across the Canal Shores property, either over the channel or otherwise. And we were informed that we are the recipient of a $40,000 grant, and so we're going to be moving forward on that feasibility study to see what it would look like, how it could be constructed, and what it could cost. And then under new business, you have 3 surplus property ordinances and an action item that is worded to approve all 3 in one motion.
Thank you.
And Steve, maybe now is an appropriate time to also talk about Friday, the fact that the Wilmette Park District Foundation is having the beach bash down at our lakefront, and the funds that are raised, I believe the foundation is designated to go towards some Wallace Bowl improvements, and so we hope that anyone and everyone will come out to that event. There'll be a couple of local bands, some food trucks, some other good stuff, so I would strongly encourage everyone to join us on Friday evening. It's a Saturday evening. Saturday evening, yep. So thank you. Saturday evening. Oops, Sue's going to kill me. Saturday evening at Gilson, so please, thank you.
I believe Smith Group is going to present first. Thank you for being here. Do you need to cue up their presentation?
I've got it on my screen, and Karen just put it up on the screens for everyone to see.
So good evening. It's a pleasure to be back here in front of you, talking about our favorite project. And I'm delighted to be able to present to you. So I'm Mark Wagstaff. You've spoken with me several times. But tonight I've brought one of my colleagues, Jennifer Kelleher. Jennifer is a 12-year landscape architect. She has been working with us on this project. And so Jennifer is going to be providing the information that you're going to see here. And then if there's questions related to cost or engineering items not related to landscape, then I'd be happy to answer those as well. Well, Jennifer, please.
Hi, everyone. As Mark mentioned, I will go over the high-level portions related to landscape for Langdon Park. pretty much starting with our design process, going through our philosophy and how that informs the design. I know there's a lot up in the air as far as the site layout, but while that is still being worked out, we're working on the planting design, coming up with plant palettes. We're also looking at materiality, and at the end of the presentation, we'll go over the 4 updates for the concepts. So planting philosophy. When we start the design process, the first thing is to look at the site as it's existing today. Oops, sorry. And then we also look at how it was before in its natural state. We're in a very urbanized environment right now. And I know, 10, 20 years ago is probably not what it naturally had looked like. So we look at the environment in a typical Great Lakes lens, the Lake Michigan lens, and then kind of more localized for Langdon Park. And from that, we've come up with these ecosystem analogs. So we're looking at from the water, more of the dunes type of systems into this interdune meadow. And then closer to the top of the bluff, we would have a shrub transition. The 4th zone that we're looking at all the way to the left is the super bloom dune, is what we're calling it. It's more of the prescribed design, so we're taking elements from the other zones, mostly for aesthetic value. It's also an opportunity to address stormwater, but it's more of that garden essence, but still pulling from a native plant palette. So if you were to take a slice, like a cake, of the bluff, this is kind of how these ecosystems would interact. So we have Lake Michigan to the right, the revetment, and then closer to the bottom is where we have the primary dune, up into the interdune, the shrub transition, and then the park at the top. And it's really important for us to look at this because this is the critical transition from water to land, and the Great Lakes, turns out in our research we found out, is the most diverse and I forget the word now, but for the habitats in the United States, the Great Lakes area has the most diversity on their coastal regions. So this is a critical zone, basically. So pulling from that philosophy and really trying to be an homage to the native design, we have these 2 goals that we're trying to achieve. It is a bluff, so there are steep slopes, and when we go back to the natural kind of system using native plants, as you can see in the left diagram, the root systems are incredibly more significantly deeper than non-native plant material. And what that means is those roots are holding on to that soil and helping mitigate further erosion. The other aspect of it, as I mentioned about the diversity of habitat, when we think of the environment as a system and not just aesthetic value, we really have to understand providing food and habitat for little critters, thinking about the insects in the soil, the microbes, and all of that benefits everybody because it has an effect on microclimates, it has an effect on pollinators that extends beyond just the lot line of Langdon Park, right? So in our philosophy, these are the kind of the 2 things that we're looking at in regards to the landscape. And just, I mentioned habitat quite a few times, and presentations always look great with nice photos. So there's a lot of Illinois animals and critters, but there's also migratory ones. These are just a select few, but being able to take what's existing that has invasive plants and has an extreme condition where the plants that are there today are kind of just trying to survive, and being able to turn it into something that's more of a thrive environment, not just for the plants, but for butterflies, bees, birds, etc. So into the 4 zones, we have been looking at creating these plant palettes. The first and second, the primary and intermediary dunes, have a large number of diversity of species in the grasses, sedges, and wildflowers, specifically because ecosystems thrive on diversity. And so we have to have an extensive plant palette to work with so that the system has better chances to thrive. So in the primary dune, we also have marram grasses, specifically closer to the water, because those are very extreme conditions, and mixed in with a variety of other grasses, sedges, and wildflowers. So these are just 6 examples of what's in the list of 40, and as you can see, many of the plants are looking at how they contribute to the ecosystem as far as pollinators and birds and things like that. The interdune has a lot of similar plants, but is transitioning up the bluff. So it's more of like a prairie mix, kind of getting away from that harsh environment right up against the water, but very similar, kind of repeating the diversity. The plant list here is 50 species, still looking at how it contributes to the ecosystem as a whole. So from those 2 lists and a little bit of the next list, there are opportunities that we think that we can highlight as far as the entrance to this pathway down to the beach, and to kind of show some sort of significance. And this would be more of that garden, more prescribed area. And we're working with our engineering team to also address stormwater. It's an opportunity to address any runoff and catch it before it just runs down the entire bluff. So we are looking at the plants in the previous lists, more for the aesthetic value, but because they're all native, they're still contributing to everything as a whole. And then at the top of the bluff, when we get up to where the park open level is, it's important to have this transition for the shrubs to kind of help mitigate that massive sheet runoff if there are major rainstorm events that like today. And it's just an additional opportunity to protect the bluff, to provide more habitat, to provide more food, and again, work as a system as a whole, and add to the diversity of the plant material along the bluff. Outside of plant material, we've been looking at other site feature materialities. Some of the concepts will require retaining walls, just because the grades are so significant in the area, and depending on which path continues on, there will either be long and short walls or tall walls, just depends on how the grades work out in the engineering. But there's lots of opportunity to either highlight and contribute to the design of the bluff, or along the bluff with the path. Sticking with that more natural material, we can use stones. There's the top 2 images are stone, so something more similar to the revetment, larger blocks, something smaller, a little bit more garden-esque. But it really depends on what happens with the path. So as you see in the bottom left, we have more of a winding path, and you can, I know it's zoomed out a little bit more, but barely see the retaining wall because it's not needing to retain as much because we're not sloping down as quickly. Or you could use a concrete wall, which could be more of a backdrop, doesn't blend in as well, but still serves the purpose. If we need a tall retaining wall, the concrete is more of an efficient option. As far as path material, I know there's been a lot of discussion about decomposed granite. It's a great material on flat surfaces. There are products where you can stabilize the material, which essentially is kind of like a glue if you think about it, if you just glued sand together. But it's still, if you take out the accessibility argument from it, it's still not as strong as concrete. And the life cycle of it is going to be a little bit less, specifically in these extremely sloped conditions. So concrete is a little bit more of, for lack of a better term, more bang for your buck. But there are lots of options with it. So if having a brand new concrete sidewalk that's like this stark gray is not ideal, since we're going with a very naturalistic pocket park, I think,
I've heard a lot of the desire of keeping more of the naturalistic environment in this area. You can get something close to decomposed granite as far as the aesthetics. You can add integral color to get more of that warmer tone. You can treat the surface, have exposed aggregate. So if you look at the top picture, that's concrete, and if you look at the bottom picture, that's decomposed granite, and they look very similar, but you're getting the strength of the concrete. On extreme slopes, there is engineering required so that we make sure that the structure itself doesn't get undermined with erosion and things like that. But if we engineer it correctly, then the longevity of the path is significant. The other option that we looked at is more of a boardwalk. So there's less impact directly cutting into the bluff, but we would have to, we would build it up on piles basically, and the boardwalk would hover above. Still having to work with the grades of the bluff because we wouldn't be able to cut in, so we would have to engineer to stay away from it. If we cut in, then we go back to having a retaining wall and everything like that. So that comes into the new options for today. So I spoke a lot about the landscape philosophy. It's basically like understanding the theme, the color, the mood of what we're trying to create, and you take that and you apply it to whichever layout we end up using. The area of impact is highly determined on the path that we choose. So once it's chosen, then the engineering gets more into it on how significant the limit of works is, and we would apply the landscape philosophy to that. I think there's an idea of improving the plant material as far as like invasive species, but as far as clear cutting or anything like that, it's just addressing what was necessary for the revetment or the path. So for this concept, the path is addressing a 5% accessible slope, which in order to go from a top level to a bottom level, you would need a certain amount of length. And in order to get that, it would be going towards the north. This option provides an opportunity to, as you've seen kind of like in that elbow, that's where we're thinking of the super bloom, where we can catch some of the water halfway down the bluff and address the stormwater. And create more of a leisurely opportunity to get down to the beach. As we moved into looking at the options towards the south, because the length is constrained, the slope of the path increases. So on average or holistically, the path along this slope would be 5 to 12%. It varies because we're trying to preserve as many trees as possible. We're trying to preserve the grade as much as possible. Generally, you want to be at a 3-to-1, which means for every foot drop, you would have 3 feet out, and that is a decent amount to not have extensive erosion, and the plants can thrive. I know plants can survive on cliffs, but I think if we're going to do it, we should do it right and give them the greatest opportunity.
I'm sorry to interrupt. When you say 3 feet out, can you explain what you mean by that?
Oh, sorry. So if you think of a triangle, if the vertical edge of the triangle is 1 foot, the horizontal edge would be 3 feet, and then the slope would be the
hypotenuse.
Thank you. And that's how we determine our slope. And so that hypotenuse side is...
But that's on the bluff, not on the path. Is that right? Because that'll be more than a
yes.
10%.
Sorry, I'm talking about the bluff.
Right. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yes.
Great.
For the plant material, the 3-to-1.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. But so those constraints contribute to the path layout and the slopes along the path because everything is connected. And we're showing an overlook and stairs down to the beach, but that's
an add-on if you want it. Obviously, the path works without it, and we can adjust the overlook. The impact that the overlook has is that the portion of the path that touches the overlook has to be flat for accessibility, and so that takes out some of our slope coming up the bluff, and it extends the path further out. And in this option, we have a pretty decent retaining wall to hold back some of.
Where's the retaining wall?
I think there's a laser.
Oh, that's right on the south end up against the property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here. Sorry.
Solid line, right? Dotted.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
The dotted line is just trying to separate the different plant materials. But
And were you saying that if the stairs weren't there, you might put the landings at different intervals?
yeah,
Is that what
so
you were saying?
yeah, if you can kind of see these small little squares. Though, I'm so sorry. You're
It's
not.
okay. It's okay.
So there's these small little squares. So these are the landings, and when you get up to the overlook, we have to have a wider landing. And if we didn't have the overlook, it would go back to a small square, and then we could go back to the slope sooner to shorten the path.
Understood. Okay.
So the new concepts, 3 and 4, are variations of number 2, which is coming down to the south. Concept 3 is using the boardwalk material. As I mentioned, we are hovering above the bluff so that we don't cut into it, which would require significant regrading and then potentially retaining walls. So we're trying to work with more of the natural grade, but there will be some grade changes just because of the revetment. And so with the boardwalk, it's ramping down at about an 8% with landings at the necessary intervals.
But that can change by lengthening it, right? Because you're not cutting into the bluff, so you could go further north with it to straighten it out. Oh, I apologize. That could change because you could go further north and lengthen it to reduce the grade, correct?
We could, yes.
You're not cutting into the bluff at all. You're just putting piers into it, and you could switch it back. And
Yes, yep. And compared to the previous path, it does go further north, and it's easier to do so because we don't have to regrade for that path. So if we wanted to make this less sloped, we could extend it north.
Right. So theoretically, it could be 5%, it could be 2%, it could be 10%, it could be 12%, just depending upon how long it is and the switchbacks that you choose. Theoretically.
Theoretically, there isn't a lot of room for an actual switchback because some of the slope pushes out closer, but you could get one longer switchback. Yes.
But you could go less than 8%, I think is the point that Patrick's making.
Yes.
It could.
Yes.
And there's no concrete retaining wall in this concept.
I was going to ask that too.
I asked it first.
Yes, you did. You beat me.
Yeah.
No concrete retaining wall, but we would have to dig piers down to put the boardwalk up.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's on piers.
What's the longevity of the materials if underwater?
I think it depends on the final material. I mean, if you're using traditional wood, it's not as great as the newer kind of
Resin wood?
composite decking material. Those last a little bit longer because they're not natural.
So I'm sorry, there's one more design, but my question is kind of answering someone's question. I think it was Joe's question about, the average high water mark, the low water mark, the average height of Lake Michigan. Any of these paths, or any of them that end where the revetment edge stops and you would come around the edge, whether it's on the north side or south side, or any of these paths or the stairs that are on these drawings, are any of them ending in the water? Because is the revetment in the water?
What is the revetment?
Stones.
I know what color.
It's gray.
It's this giant gray piece.
So what does green mean?
Green is the plant materials.
Yeah, sorry.
We got this.
You're presenting to the board.
I'm sorry.
Just to clarify.
Sorry.
I would direct the public, anyone that's on a device that wants to pull up previous board packets. Did Michelle or Steve know quickly which ones they are? A lot of these, a lot of the questions asked tonight are in previous packets that have been presented previously as well, which we can always direct you to.
So
in a
can
future
you,
email.
coming back to the question that I've asked you, where's the revetment edge? Where are these paths ending?
I will defer to the engineer.
So I can either answer that now, or we can, I can either answer that now, or we could finish the landscape, and then I can
finish the
talk about
landscape, yeah. I'm
the
sorry.
coastal
Let her
part.
finish.
Can I ask a landscape question? Right.
Can we let her finish?
Yes, of course.
She's got one more. Would you like, you tell us, would you like to run through where you were at, or do you want us to interrupt you further?
I think you can ask the question.
Thank you. How is this ecosystem presented changed from fall of 2022, when I think the last time we saw that?
It's similar but more refined.
Okay. So that Monday night, I don't think it was was it Carl? I was Bears Patriots that night. I remember that. Steve, he was excellent. Yeah, he talked about native species coefficient in the Prairie and Northbrook being a 10 and Langdon being a 1. Has there been any more assessment about that, or could you kind of explain again roughly what that means? Because it was a year ago when we talked about that.
The coefficient, I would
Well,
not-
just in terms of invasive species versus not.
So the invasive species, not to be dramatic, but I would think about it as like mold. It's there, it will multiply, it like crowds out the native plants.
Right.
And I think his coefficients speak to the degree that it's currently at.
Right.
I think one of the things to think about a landscape, it's not like architecture where it's preserved in a certain state and then maybe the materials degrade. Landscape is and will forever constantly change,
Sure.
Especially with the environment and everything.
Right.
So what we're proposing is trying to bring it back to what this area would be more naturally.
Right, so no Siberian elms, like I think that was it was almost 2 years ago that we brought up that Siberian elm is in fact not native to Wilmette.
Yeah.
Right, so that,
Yes.
so that I think that was the first, it was almost 2 years ago we talked about this. Then 2022 fall, Steve was here, and this is kind of the next iteration of that
Yes.
2-year process. Okay.
Yeah, so Steve looked at the existing conditions and the existing quality of the plant material that's there,
Right.
and kind of provided us with the information of, these are the things that you need to look at and address, and so if we're taking things away, we want to provide back. We want to provide nutrients.
It was just a long time between the two, and I wanted to make
No,
sure.
that's okay. So the last concept, I think because of the discussion of the engineering of the path and accessibility, we're looking at, how can we extend length to meet some of those if-thens. So this is just quickly addressing a possibility. I think, I didn't say this at the beginning, but if you look at all of these concepts, they are big swaths of color, and there's orange and purple. It's very conceptual, and it's a diagram. There's a lot of refinement that goes into the engineering. And from a landscape perspective, you mostly want to have that 75%, 80% figured out before we come in. That's why we're at a very philosophical level with the landscape. So a lot of it looks the same. A lot of it is, if we look at this, then what would happen? And part of that is figuring out what are the goals of the project. But so this last concept is just taking another look at another option. If this, then this is what we could potentially look at. So one of the reasons, so we were looking at extending the length and basically connecting to the existing pedestrian access, because the other options were connecting to a vehicular access into the park. So the dashed purple line is the existing pedestrian path. I believe it's pavers. And the solid purple line, we were thinking, is just continuing that material so that the park feels whole and it doesn't seem like it was pieced in. And I think it provides a better user experience, being able to enter the park as a pedestrian from the pedestrian entrance. If you wanted to use the playground area or go to the other area, you can, but you could also continue on and it would just naturally lead you to the path down to the beach. So the purple is more of that entrance procession. And we have a little circle to symbolize maybe like a moment to stop, a moment where we could have someone, if you guys wanted to have like ticketing or I don't know, events or something like that, it could be a moment just to sit down. And then the orange path would go back to addressing the access to the beach. But in calculating the length of the path, we would do from the orange all the way through the dashed purple. So in doing that, we can get a 5 to 12% path. And again, the overlook and the stairs are an add-on if you want them or not. And I believe this one wouldn't need a significant retaining wall because the slope of the path is not as extreme, and so we wouldn't need to retain as much soil in a shorter amount of distance.
But are you, with this extension back to the play lot, are you digging deeper further into the park to create less of a slope?
I think it's the opposite.
No.
So
No.
that was one of my questions, that my understanding was one of our concerns about option concept 2 was that it would have required an additional 4 feet of excavation at the entrance of the bluff, if you will, and by extending the path, it allowed for changes in some of the calculations such that there would only be 1 foot of excavation. Is that what I saw on a chart someplace? Is that correct?
Yes, so the part of the requirements in the accessibility path is that you can have a certain amount of slope within 30% of the length of the path. So if we extend the length of the path, we have more length within that 30% to slope up faster. And so we are intending to do that still in the orange area so that in this pinch point is where that major excavation is. Instead of cutting in 4 feet, we would only need to cut in 1.
And just to take that a little bit further from what you had said about concept 2, I believe, in the stairs, you said that if we have the stairs, there's a longer section that needs to be flat. Were we to remove the stairs, that would be a shorter section. So would that allow some additional adjustments so in theory, the excavation could be less than 12 inches? Possibly?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand because that was one of our major concerns with concept 2 was how much we were excavating into the saddle of the bluff, if you will, and what we could do to reduce or eliminate that. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the landscaping would allow for some stormwater protection? Is that
Yes, very, very similar. I think there's an opportunity in the circle area for more of like an entrance moment that could still, I mean, you're adding pavement, it's still a path. It could be permeable pavers if you want, but that's an opportunity for stormwater. And then in the orange section, it's very similar to all the other designs that we would have opportunities for that.
And in any of the scenarios where the path is to the south and the rest of the bluff is off there on the side, would your earlier slides still apply with your planting materials and the cross-section that you showed us?
The section would adjust based off of the grade because depending on whether the path goes up to the north or not, I think significantly impacts that kind of like pizza slice. But yes, to your answer of the plant material, we can apply that philosophy. It would just look a little bit different than this. Right now, it's almost like you're trying to throw a dart at a moving piece. And so it could look like this. I think the intent is to follow that philosophy, but once we have like a solid layout, that's when we can start to refine things and show you what it would really look like.
Yeah, and I think you're making an important point here, which is these are very preliminary.
Yes.
But it's helpful to illustrate what the aesthetics might be and what the design philosophy would be.
So I want to go back to the concept 4 that you have here with the blue or purple, you're saying so that is just, we're not changing the grade anywhere through that section of the path, right? The purple path.
The purple,
It just lays on top of the ground essentially as the ground lies right now.
I mean, you don't lay it just on top.
I understand.
But yes, we would not be cutting in to meet the path grades for the bluff.
Okay, I'm not quite sure I understand how it is that just by extending that to making to the playground, how it avoids the deeper cut because this is basically the same 4 is pretty much the same as 2, which required but so how is that a deeper cut not needed? And maybe this is an answer for Mark, not for you, but or a question for Mark.
I can try to answer, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. So in option 2, which I can go back to, we are the whole length of the orange. We are grading to meet our requirements, and up further to the left is not as extreme, but it is still part of the path grade. In option 4. We are able to, because of, I think option 2 ends kind of right here, because we are extending into this play area and around, we are able to minimize the grade impact in this area and kind of push it more down into the bluff.
So the area down the bluff is steeper in option 4, is what you're saying? Okay.
Okay, then by that clarification, I understand that a little bit better then. Thank you.
On the landscaping questions, let's ask anyone. I know some people have expressed concern. How will this look different than Gilson?
Or how will it look different from today?
And we've discussed today a lot at that previous meeting he referenced a while ago, but.
Yeah, I am not familiar with Gilson, so I'll leave that question to Mark.
It would seem to me that
environments.
But also, yes, I'm saying it's a very different layout. It's a very different. It seems to me that under these plans, it'll look closer to Elmwood Dunes than to Gilson. I mean, because that's. I mean, Elmwood Dunes is different. One's different because it is a stairway, but it is very much.
If you go back to the cross section that was early in your presentation, please. I found that to be really helpful, actually, and I can appreciate that someone would see dune grass on the suite of choices perhaps and immediately think about the dune grasses we pass at Gilson, which transitions us from a parking lot to a beach, and there's not an elevation change. But if you are at the bottom where the water is in this photo and looking up, you're seeing the trees at the top, right? And from your shrub transition, is the height of those like splitting the difference between the trees and the low-lying shrubs, or are those? I interpreted that that's also part of the visual. So I'm trying to visualize looking up versus today we look up and we see a wall of green, invasive as it may be. Are we still going to look up from the water and see only green, or are we going to be seeing the playground or seeing?
You're going to see color.
Development. We'll see color.
I don't think that you would. I think you would see the wall of shrubs and probably the understory of the trees. The shrubs are 4 or 5 feet, and you're, 30-foot difference at the bottom. I don't think you would be able to see, but we could diagram that up and be 100% sure
See,
later.
I had the opposite reaction. When I saw this, I was actually quite concerned for a couple of reasons. One, if you take it, I was pulling up a couple of pictures from what's there now, and I think what you see now in the areas identified as primary dune and inner dune, we currently have oak trees. We may have some Siberian elms or some other invasive, but there are actually a good number of trees in. So all 3 of those areas, primary dune, inner dune, and shrub transition. And when you look at it like this, Kara, I think your point is well taken. You won't be able to see the playground. I agree. But what I've always found sort of special about this particular cove, if you will, is especially when you're walking down up the beach to the north, what's there now really pretty well hides the high rises and all the other buildings, and it looks like kind of a secluded cove. When I see this, I'm concerned that especially when you're walking along the beach and you're looking to the north, much of that sheltering is going to be gone. I mean, I know that when, going back to some of our previous landscape conversations, I think a statement might have been made something to the effect, well, within 2, 3, 5 years, it's all going to kind of look the same. And that was sort of the assumption that I was operating under, that, yes, of course, we're going to have to strip away a lot of invasive plantings to kind of get this to the right place. And back to your point about how we want the right plantings with the right root structures to properly preserve the dune. But I was under the impression that, again, depending on how long it takes for trees to grow and whatnot, that you would still get this sheltering again, especially on that north vista. And as I look at this, I think that's not going to be the case. So I understand when, it's not going to look like Gilson, but I think it's not going to look like it is now either, especially as you look to the north. That's my concern as I look at this.
My comment, and first of all, I don't want it looking like it now because it's too many invasives. I've done enough clearing out at Harms Woods of invasives, at Canal Shores of invasives. I hate invasives. And if we can get rid of them, then it's fine. But I guess what my point is if in that shrub transition there are oak trees or hickories or not Norway maples, because that's invasive, but if there are native maples, will you take them out or will you leave them? And I guess that's my question. And, so is there going to be really that much difference if there are trees that are native trees that are in that lower level?
So a couple things I want to just, and I'm not, this is about the engineering part of the bluff. So we're not going to revegetate the entirety of the bluff. That is not the goal, and none of the slides indicate that. At the northern part of the bluff, even when we have the path running through there, we go barely halfway up the bluff. So everything that's on that upper half stays the same, invasive or not, unless you decide that you want to remove it. So this section here represents more of the area at the entrance where we're doing touching. So where the grading needs to go up to the top and we have to disturb the entirety of the slope, then we'll follow this philosophy. In the areas where we're only touching the bottom third or the bottom half, then everything above that stays the same. And it's important to remember that when we look at these, if you look at, there's a diagonal line there that more or less represents where the fence is right at the top. Mm-hmm. So you can see there's more than half of the bluff there that is not getting touched.
Got it. Okay.
So that's the first point with that.
Okay.
And then the other point that I just wanted to make on that is that where we are disturbing the bluff in order to put the revetment in, we have to put that back at a slope that's going to be stable, and we have to do it with plants.
The 3-to-1 ratio
the 3-to-1,
we're talking about, right.
And have the plants that are going to thrive in that location and be stable. So yes, at the moment, occasionally, there are some trees that are right in there. There's also a lot of fallen trees. So the things that are volunteering in that top of the revetment right now are not there for the long term.
Right.
If you walk through there, you'll see several that have fallen. So yes, some things have sprouted up. Some of them are great, but that's not really, rooted and secure and a place that those are going to thrive. So in the areas that we have to disturb, we'll put in then the appropriate plants, not ones that...
And Cecilia, back to your point, I don't want to preserve invasive species either. I was talking more about the secluded nature of that space. And yes, some of it is provided by invasives. It's my hope that that will be provided by native plantings at some point in the future. And I was trying to understand what those would look like, because in the cross-section, I didn't see much of that kind of stuff with more height. That was my concern.
Yeah, I appreciate, Mark, the clarification. It's just that portion
Yeah.
where accessing the beach, but otherwise remaining larger bushes, trees, et cetera, that are untouched will be there.
Whatever is
Whatever's
there now
there
will
is there.
still be there. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think there's any intention, and certainly this board, as I know it, would be opposed to any kind of mass removal of trees unless there
So
were,
that-
to your
that
point,
section is-
buckthorn
is-
or something.
Is very sort of stylized to look
Yeah.
at.
Yeah.
You know.
Here's what it would be adjacent to the path.
But if we would draw the same section like at the north, then the
Could
top
look very
would be
different.
exactly
Mhm.
what it
Thanks
is,
for
and then we
clarifying
would
that.
still use the same palette as Jennifer has it here, that we have the dune grass at the bottom, the slightly taller intermediate, and then the shrub transition, and then into whatever is there now.
So you used the word transitions a few times, and I think this is an important question then. What does that transition look like? Is the new to old a transition, or is it a very, I just, after seeing the beautiful photos you have versus the invasive species that are currently growing, I'm going to steal the expression wild and woolly, we have sort of a very manicured, though natural look going into a wild and woolly invasive. I just don't see the two blending well.
I think that's one of the big purposes of the shrub transition too, to help protect the primary and interdune plant mix. And it's something to address in more detail when we find the line of where the new and the old will be. Because then we can look at specific trees and specific plant material and really try to weave that together. But right now, the line doesn't exist really, so it's hard.
Thank you.
I really appreciate, Jennifer, what you said earlier in the presentation about from existing things that are just trying to survive versus native things that will thrive. And certainly, I know we talked about that for a good hour at the previous committee meeting when you guys were here previously, and we talked about those oaks that might be hanging on that are just barely there, but given that they're on that slope and the cliff and the 3-to-1 ratio isn't sustainable for the long term. So while sometimes I think that, what was his name? Mark? Also,
no, Steve.
No, Steve.
Steve. That's Mark.
What he was trying to encourage us was that the shock is initially might feel stark, but they can design around things that grow quickly. I know we tore out all of our landscaping recently, and the first year was rough, and it's gotten out of control very quickly, right? And so I think they can design to grow that back, and that's part of the reality that are we going to allow some of these things that are hanging on just surviving, or are we going to design towards plants that will thrive? So I appreciate that distinction. Further landscaping questions? Okay, Mark, you want to elaborate any further on?
Jennifer, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yep.
So I'll address, Patrick, you had a question about where the path ends.
Yeah, is Joe still here, or did he leave? All right, thank you.
So when we have the path option, the concrete path will go down if it was the option 1, and we go right to the very north end, there will be a little transition from the end of the revetment, and then the concrete path will come down. There would be some stone at the bottom of that, buried around the bottom of that concrete, and then it would be concrete to sand.
Yep.
And that concrete would probably even extend and be buried in the sand, generally speaking. And then if the water level comes up, or if there's a little bit of erosion, that would just uncover some of that existing concrete. If we come down to the concrete,
That didn't answer the question. So at what level is that? I mean,
well, it varies.
At the north varies from the south, right?
So the water level varies, and
but we're talking about you're talking average high water mark, average. Yeah. So there's a foot level, right? 581, 570, and 570. So that's
we want to get the path down to about an elevation of about 580 582, 581 or something, and then there would be sand beyond that. At times, when the water does come up, if we have sand in front of that, it doesn't necessarily erode all the sand away. And so with the revetment, that revetment gets buried and then sand is put back on top.
Right.
So even if some of the sand moves, we would still have, the path would go down, and there could be a time where you got to the bottom of the path, and if the lake is really high, you're at the lake.
Right, but that would be in a case where the water is right up on the revetment.
Yeah.
Right.
And we had that scenario in the south part of Gilson, where the dune is, that the water was right up to those to the dune plants, and then it retreated back in. So when the lake is very high, the lake would be could be right up to the path, right up to the meet the revetment, and there may be no beach at all.
Right.
What we're in the scenarios where we have the stairs, we want to make sure that the stairs go over the revetment and down sufficiently beyond where the beach typically is, so that if there is some movement of sand,
there's always stairs.
There's not a drop off,
Right.
and there would be piles there to support it, so the structure is always supported.
Right.
But exactly what elevation you're going to land on any given day? Because what we saw was that
and that wasn't really the question. The question was, what's the plan? Because as it was brought up by Joe, the idea of the drawings seems to present that the path or the stairs are going to end in the water, and people are visualizing ending in the water today, or because, and I understand that these are all conceptual plans right now because we have yet to say this is what we're doing, similar to our landscape, questions. All right, and once we know what we're doing there, details will get really finalized. We'll know exactly what the path looks like. We'll know where things transition. We'll have a better idea of how it's going to look until we pick that path. But for right now, there's a little bit of confusion, it seems, about where things are relative to how people are visualizing the beach today.
But it is also important to remember that the sand and the elevation of the sand
changes.
So it's not only that the water level changes, but the sand can accumulate or be eroded too. So so you may go down one time and the sand could be up over the bottom portion of the path. You may go down another time and the path may extend a little further. But the end of the path would always be protected so that it's not going to be.
And if I could just sort of jump in on that, if there were a situation where the bottom of the path is actually below the water level, so in theory the path is going into the water, that's still not necessarily problematic because it allows people to get down to wherever the sand is or the water edge, and then they can but there will still be an access, whereas what happened over the last few years is our access totally eroded, so there was no access.
And you had a cliff. Yeah,
Right.
so there would be, even if the water level was very high, like it was in 2020, you might come down and there might not be any visible sand, and the path may end up at the water, and that would be up to the Park District to decide, for that temporary period, how to manage that.
I mean, I think that, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of people have brought up the referendum here and at the multiple meetings before and emails, and for me, the referendum shows that you just don't know what the lake's going to do, right? And the volatility of the lake water is hugely important. And frankly, if we have a path that terminates in the water, we're very happy we built the revetment because that means we've protected the bluff. And so we are talking about something important, but at the end of the day, we're creating a protection for the bluff and putting access after that.
And I would add the referendum also refers to a conceptual beach house at
Yes.
Langdon, which is not at all in consideration.
That would be underwater now. Right. We all agree.
Well,
Yeah.
it would have been, yeah.
Well, yeah, would have been, right.
The last item I just wanted to mention on this slide, in the last column, there is some sort of cost consideration here. And just very quickly, we compared the different costs of the path as a proportion of the cost of doing the revetment. So you can see that 1, 2 and 4 are all very comparable in terms of cost. Adding the path is about 10% of the cost of doing the revetment and the bluff stabilization work. Adding in the platform and stairs in all 3 of those does elevate the cost. The third option, which is the similar to the Tower Road Park at Winnetka, sort of modeled off of that. And in fact, we got some information from the Winnetka Park District specifically about what that cost in 2020. That is a much more expensive option because of all the piling that the path sits on and all of the structural supports that are needed for that path. So that is a significantly more expensive option. And then the very last point is we've given you approximately what these path lengths are, but we are also committed to working with WT, who you're going to hear from, and making sure that, if we've interpreted something too strictly from the code, because there are a lot of, is it a trail, is it a beach access route, is it a outdoor recreation route, is it a path, so we've tried to use the strictest interpretation, which has limited what we could do, but if we can be a little bit more flexible. And so we are committed to working with WT to make sure that we so these numbers on the lengths may change just a little bit.
Okay. So I'm going to ask that if you guys, and I'm not saying that we're done with the conversation, other people might have questions, but WT is going to come up and talk to us, and I'm just going to ask that you guys stick around because we may have more questions for you after we hear from WT.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to have John McGovern from WT Group come and walk us through his report. John, up there is a clicker, right arrow will advance your slides.
Great, thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Just a little bit of context. The Illinois Accessibility Code did adopt the pending federal guidance regarding beaches and campsites and trails, several outdoor recreation areas that the federal government never approved. So these were adopted by Illinois in 2018. They were built in 1999 and 2000, and I served on the Federal Advisory Committee that drafted the guidance regarding beaches and campsites and trails, and the other 2 federal advisory committees that address playgrounds and so forth. So I'm very familiar with the requirements here, and I wanted to focus on the PowerPoint, but I thought it might be helpful because of some of the comments in the packet to just describe an alteration under the Illinois Accessibility Code. An alteration is any modification or renovation that affects or could affect the usability of the building or facility or a part of the building or facility. Facility includes a beach. Alteration includes but is not limited to remodeling, renovation, rehabilitation, reconstruction, historic preservation, historic reconstruction, historic rehabilitation, historic restoration, changes to or arrangement of the structural parts or elements, changes to or replacement of plumbing, resurfacing of circulation paths, I think is pertinent here, and changes or improvements to parking lots. There are only a handful of things that don't fit in the definition of an alteration, and those are normal maintenance, re-roofing, painting or wallpapering, or changes to mechanical or electrical systems. I can't help but read this and think that whatever steps you're going to take are an alteration. So just a couple of quick comments. I'm going to talk briefly about the ADA, the Illinois Environmental Barriers Act, the Title II regulation published by the Department of Justice. That's the big dog in the room here. The federal standards and the Illinois Accessibility Code and how they interrelate. The new design and construction rules, the existing sites and program access tests, so think Gilson, plan review, and then conclusion. feel free to interrupt me as we go through this with questions as well. So I'm sure this beginning slide is not new to you. The ADA became effective for the Park District on January 26th of 1992. The ADA has been amended once. The statute has in 2008. The design standards have only been amended once in 31 years as well. And the Department of Justice regulation has only been amended once. So it's not a moving target. The regulation and the standard do not frequently change. The ADA does apply to both new sites as well as existing sites. There was debate when the ADA was being adopted about requiring all existing sites to be made accessible. Of course, everybody realized that would be impractical and far too expensive for all 89,000 units of state and local government. So that is not part of the standard. There certainly is language, too, that says for existing sites, in the absence of an alteration, that not necessarily every existing site has to be made accessible. I'll talk a little bit about the program access test when we get to that. I think it's important to note that from an enforcement perspective, it's been consistent for every presidential administration from 1992 to today. You can take settlement agreements that were issued under the first President Bush and compare them to the ones that we see today, or even the ones that we saw in the last administration. And they are almost identical in tone and content. The EBA preceded the ADA. It became effective in 1985 for the Park District. It, too, applies to new design and construction. There is a lightly staffed Illinois Disability Rights Bureau within the Office of the Attorney General, and they have a relatively small staff in both Chicago and Springfield. I think it's important to note that as the EBA and the Illinois Accessibility Code have changed, there's been an effort to harmonize it with the federal standards, because one of the ADA requirements is that the Park District has to meet whichever is more stringent, the federal requirement or the state requirement. And again, because the feds have not adopted beaches that Illinois has, then the Illinois Accessibility Code really drives the determination about whether or not a beach that is being altered is going to be accessible. The Title II regulation, published by the Department of Justice, became effective on the same date, January 26th of 1992. Only been changed once. That was in 2011. Existing sites are really clearly addressed, as clear as DOJ can do so, at Section 35.149, and it relies on the notion of the program access test. So let me use an example that's not a beach. If a park district, and I'm just going to make up the numbers, if a park district has 30 playgrounds, it has to make the program of playgrounds accessible. So is one playground enough out of 30? Probably not. Is all 30 required? Definitely not. So we typically advise districts to aim for a minimum of one of 3. So that would put 10 of those 30 playgrounds in compliance. Then in 2024, when the 11th playground is replaced because it's aged out, it's new construction, and it has to be accessible. Then in 2026, when the same thing happens again. So you see the pattern here. And that was part of what Congress wanted to have happen. That was part of what the Department of Justice included in the regulation. New sites are one of the really clear areas within the Department of Justice regulation. So it's Section 35.151, sorry for the typo. New sites must fully comply with either the federal standards or the state standards, whichever is more stringent. A number of states have adopted pieces that are more stringent. Texas is going to adopt the exact same thing that Illinois adopted in 2018 toward the end of this year or early 2024. Massachusetts prohibits the use of engineered wood fiber in playgrounds that are new because they believe that it's too difficult to maintain. So many of the states have decided we're going to exceed the minimum requirements of the ADA. Importantly, there's no grandfather clause for any type of asset within Title II. Nothing is given a free pass. You may choose to make the 10 other playgrounds accessible, leaving a different playground inaccessible and as is until it is later changed. But there's no grandfathering within the Act. We talked about federal and state standards. So again, the mesh here between the 2010 standards for accessible design and then IAC, which is now broader and covers beaches, trails, picnic areas, campsites, viewing areas, and more. And I already talked about the district has the obligation to meet whichever is more stringent or whichever is broader. A little bit about the new design and construction rules. So this clearly includes, from the reading of the definition, replacement and rehabilitation. There is this notion of capping changes at 20%. That's called the concept of disproportionality. That's included in the standard, not just for beach access, but for other assets. So if you are constructing a new asset and the cost is $1 million, up to $200,000 is the concept of disproportionality, path of travel to get me to the new thing. So that certainly applies here, but it applies to all other Park District sites as well. I don't see any way that this project, and that acknowledges that these are still in preliminary form, but I don't see any way that this project isn't a 35.151 project, that it isn't new construction. The program access test, so I used playground as an example here. Let's use a beach as an example. So certainly Gilson is accessible. I think in the board packet materials in correspondence, there was a reference to Gilson and the half-mile limit. But this is a separate park. This is a separate beach. If you weren't doing anything to it,
Can I make it? Yeah, I was going to make a comment because so like 5 years ago, because there was nothing done and it was, or let's say 6 years ago, it had been created. It was kind of like your playgrounds. It was like a playground that didn't need to be made ADA because it just was already in existence and we had the ADA. But once we start making the changes, that triggers the ADA requirements.
it does.
Yeah.
And I should go back to this slide. There's two examples of this that are both outdoor recreation related. In the early 90s, there was a hurricane that struck Miami-Dade County. There was a pier that was inaccessible. The hurricane wiped it out. Miami-Dade rebuilt it exactly as it was and inaccessible. They wound up entering into a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice, and they had to rebuild it and make it an accessible pier. The same thing happened a little bit northeast of that in New York. In the Adirondacks, there was a halfway house at a trail. The trail was inaccessible. They rebuilt the halfway house. New York Department of Conservation said, well, the trail's not accessible, so we're not going to make the halfway house accessible. A hiker who uses a wheelchair got his friends to pretty much drag him to the halfway house where he couldn't use the restroom, couldn't use the water fountains, couldn't use anything. And New York had to rebuild it. So this new construction piece is pretty strict. Plan review, we did look at the exceptions. There was another email comment, I believe, in the packet about exceptions being viewed as loopholes. We certainly don't view those that way. All of the exceptions in the Illinois Accessibility Code and in the federal guidance, they were intended to anticipate circumstances that will arise at some beaches, not all beaches, but they are legitimately usable approaches for you, and they can affect the slope. So the beach access route, yes, it does have a maximum 5% running slope, but it can go higher for a limited period of time. It can also be a permanent route or it can be a temporary route. So many beaches use a temporary rollout surface to get to the normal recreation water level, which unfortunately is not well defined. In our plan review comments, we talked about referring to the Army Corps of Engineers for information about that, or NOAA as well. When the plans that we saw, we thought the north option was the only compliant option, but there are other plans, and we are happy to look at those and work with Smith Group to make sure that they fit the IAC requirements.
Can I ask about that for
Sure.
a second? And again, not trying to get cute, but you do talk about, and I think you're going to go into at some point, trails versus paths versus beach access routes versus outdoor recreation access routes. And I don't begin to understand the distinctions. It sounds like the beach access route is the most restrictive. Can an argument be made that it's not a beach access route if there's no beach you're getting down to? Because obviously that was the case here for an extended period of time. And then by making that argument, can you then choose an alternative definition that gives you more flexibility?
We talked about that when Tanya Scheibe is one of our project managers. She's a registered accessibility specialist. And when we were at the site with district staff, we talked about whether or not the trail requirements could apply. That would allow you to go up to 12.5%
rather than 10.
Very limited pieces. But if you look at the definitions, this isn't a trail. A trail is an exterior route that pedestrians use for recreational purposes. So is there a way to make this a trail? There might be, but the plans that we saw don't contemplate that. So you have the choice between beach access route, outdoor recreation access route, or in a different plan, a trail. So we did consider that, but we don't see it in the plans today.
Could you please flip back 2 slides?
Sure.
To
Existing sites and
Yeah,
program
did you
access.
skip over the bottom point about the Langdon Beach is not a program access?
It's not program access just because it's new construction. If, and
That was kind of my point.
Yeah, that was the
made.
point that
So
you
it didn't. So it wasn't an issue 7 years ago because, because there was an ADA compliant beach. But once we did now that there was construction, it's like a playground. You could have 10 playgrounds that are ADA, but once you start redoing a new playground, that new playground has to be ADA. So so once we do the construction, that starts it going.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right.
So just to be a bit pedantic, even though Gilson is accessible, Langdon is not exempt.
Not anymore.
It's not
Not
exempt.
anymore.
Not anymore.
It's
Because
not-
it's
When
new
we do this
construction.
work, right?
It's
Right.
not exempt once you are planning the work.
Okay, thank you.
Let's not draw a fine line between start and planning, but if
Fair.
you're going to alter that site, then it's treated as new under the Title II regulation.
Thank you.
Again, the north option, I'm going to stop here and see if there are more questions. But
I'm
the
sorry to
north
interrupt.
option- Oops, sorry.
The existence of the original plan, the 2022 plan, we call it 2022 because it almost went to bid in 2022. Is that essentially close the door on? I mean, because you said it's exempt up to once you begin planning, it's new construction. I mean, I'm thinking lawsuits here and trying to.
No, I'm sorry. I misspoke.
Okay, thank you.
A plan is a plan. It's once you execute the plan.
Thank you.
This is just summarizing some of what we said, or some of what I said, but whenever altering or adding to or designing new, I think accessibility's got to be the second thing that is talked about. The first thing is, what's the idea? What are we trying to do here? And immediately after that, whether it's a playground or a beach, you've got to talk about how we're going to wrap compliance with the Illinois Accessibility Code into the project. I understand from the village's communication with you that they are interested in how the Capital Development Board views this. I'll tell you that in all of our work for park districts and counties and forest preserve districts in the metro area and throughout the state, we've never had a CDB problem arise. So we're happy to work with the village as well as Smith Group and certainly talk to CDB if that becomes an issue. And I think, it's pretty clear this is still something that we want to continue to work with you on, do a site visit with you or with Smith Group or whomever the appropriate group is. and make sure we're all on the same page. And in particular about what are those three choices that you have.
So could I ask you, one of the residents brought up a question about compliance versus accessibility. Can you straighten out that?
It came up just the other night at another meeting. There is a way for you to, I talked earlier about you don't have to make every existing site accessible. So you're compliant.
Right.
If indeed you've made, and I think in the example, that was the playground example, if you've made 10 or 11 of your 30 playgrounds accessible, you're compliant. Certainly, being compliant today doesn't mean you don't have to do it again in 2024 and 2025 and 2026. So but I think that's baked into the code. The notion that you can have an asset that is not accessible. Not every single park bench that you have in a park is accessible to somebody with a mobility impairment, but you don't have to make every single park bench accessible. So that's certainly a factor. It's something we analyze all the time. We rarely, if ever, recommend more than a third of recurring assets be made accessible.
So the way that I took the residents' comments was specific to this site being accessible or compliant, as opposed to all parks in a district, as your example went. So my understanding of what you're saying is we're doing construction there. It has to be ADA accessible, therefore compliant with our rules. Now, am I using the phrases wrong?
I think we're conflating the two words, and they don't necessarily mean the same thing. The statute calls, and by the statute I mean the ADA, calls for sites to be accessible to and usable by people with disabilities once new construction or alterations or additions occur. So I would focus on that. There certainly are, I mentioned the loophole comment, there are exceptions in both the Illinois Accessibility Code and in the federal standards. There's nothing wrong. You don't have to hide your head if you use an exception. Those were intended to be there for a park district to use.
But they don't apply here because this is essentially new construction.
The plans that we saw, I didn't think applied.
Okay.
Any questions have been asked about the existing path that was there, is still somewhat there, and that being considered a repair instead of a new construction, just pouring down more sand, grading what is existing. Can you talk us through that and what it means under these guidelines?
Well, IAC specifically talks about, in the beach access route language, circulation paths. So if you're going to consider that a circulation path, I think that's a trigger for accessibility there.
What is a circulation path, just to be clear?
It's not well defined.
Okay.
Or the other way of asking it, what would allow us to not consider it a circulation path? Is that possible?
I don't think
I'm just
so.
trying to be thorough.
Right.
And,
It's a great question.
The phrase, he threw the book at you, is it real?
Yeah. So while you're looking that up, I have a question. Amy Boyer, you just showed up.
I've got the answer.
Just give me 1 second.
All right.
Amy Boyer, you just showed up to our meeting. We were told you had COVID, which is why you couldn't be here, and that's why Beth Butcher had to speak on your behalf?
In her place, when we spoke earlier this meeting, Amy told me she was concerned.
So
Okay,
we
I
can
apologize.
take your
We've
answer.
gone
I just
over
wanted to bring up a point
I
here, so,
understand, but
yeah.
I do not appreciate the twisting that's going on right here.
I think if the fact
Excuse
is that.
me. All right,
if
we're
Amy
gonna go
has-
back to the
Yeah, This
presentation.
is not really appropriate.
Sorry,
And
that
if
was
Amy
off
has
topic.
COVID, she shouldn't be here. Just making that.
And to use her 3 minutes
Okay,
to satiate.
we're gonna, thank you
Circulation
for
path.
finding us.
Circulation path,
Thank you.
please said.
Yes.
A circulation path is an exterior or interior way of passage provided for pedestrian travel, including but not limited to walks, hallways, courtyards, elevators, platform lifts, ramps, stairways, and landings. I think it fits. When we were there at the site a couple Fridays ago, I think it fits.
So by saying that, this is a path that is going to be considered to be required to be ADA accessible.
Yes.
I mean, to try and call it something else, to try and design it differently, it still could be argued that it is a circulation path or that.
Yes.
Even if the
I
fence
think-
was taken down today and and what was there is being used to walk down to the beach, it is considered.
As soon as we do the
under-
revetment work, we're required to make a path ADA accessible unless we qualify for the cost exemption, which Mark has clearly indicated we don't.
And I guess the village just says they would still expect us to make it, I'm not quite sure how that's possible, but utilize the up to 20% to make it ADA accessible. So, and I'm not quite sure how that is even really possible. So I just feel like, I mean, there's just no exemption.
If I could go back to your prior slide.
Sure.
Just because you just say the north option is the only compliant option, likely must also address
Out
the
of the
stairs.
ones that we saw, Commissioner.
Right, so when you say likely must also address the stairs, what does that mean? And then I'm going to come back to the first part of that comment.
The handrails.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we had a comment in our plan review about handrails. Handrails are required for stairs.
Okay,
So
got it, okay. And then I understand that of what you reviewed, but the option 3, we had some discussions about how the slope might change or whatever. Are you saying that you don't believe option 3 or 4 could be made to be compliant? Or you're saying you just don't have anything to review, so you can't comment on it at this point?
don't have anything to review and can't comment on it.
Okay.
It was engaged before any of us have seen.
Right, I
phase 3 or
understand.
4.
I have one other question, because you did indicate that if these could be categorized as trails, but you were saying the plans as you see them don't fall under the definition of trail, and I guess, but they could be adjusted to be a trail, and I don't quite understand. That's what I don't quite understand. I mean, how would they be changed to?
Or an
become-
outdoor recreation access route or whatever the case
Well,
may be.
the outdoor recreation access route, yours is the easier one to answer.
Sorry.
An outdoor recreation access route is a connector route. It connects site elements to each other. A trail is used for recreational purposes. It's there for recreation. So it's not a shared use path, which is a transportation alternative. It's a trail with recreation experiences that you seek out for that experience. So they're different. I'm not saying that it can't be. I'm not saying that there couldn't be a trail along that area. But right now, what we saw didn't include that.
How prevalent are some of the, I was thinking, what risks are we taking by trying to make this a trail? Or I was reading about Scott Johnson today, the ADA lawyer that said you can. You're familiar with him?
No, I'm not.
Okay, he basically sues everybody by setting them up for ADA settlements. Is it prevalent? I mean, what risks are we taking by?
For Title II entities, relief under the ADA is injunctive in nature. So you're going to be told, redo it and make it compliant. You have to pay the attorney's fees for the plaintiff, and of course, you're going to incur your own attorney's fees. But there aren't damages or anything like that. You'll have your face smeared over the front page of some online news feed, but other than that, it's still a risk. Just as you lower the cost of losses for safety by maintaining parks and playgrounds for safety, it's the same concept here. You can lower the cost of accessibility issues by being a little bit more proactive.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we were injunctive and if we built something that was not, that we then lost that is not being accessible, that would be a really expensive rebuild. Really, really expensive. So, yeah.
Nor do I think our village would guide us to go down that route in the first place. I appreciate your distinctions. I know it wasn't in your presentation, but it was in our packet in your cover letter with some of the distinctions on the trails and some of the grading, which I know you've been discussing with Smith Group, which I appreciate the collaboration between the two of your teams coming together at the last minute, coming early tonight. We want to acknowledge and appreciate your extra effort and for you, for turning this around in such a quick timeframe. We appreciate
Yes,
your
sure. Thank you.
responsiveness to that as well.
Glad to be able to do it.
I do have a quick question. We talked about the grading and or it was in your cover letter, some of the parameters around that. What about the width of the access route or trail?
Minimum 5 foot.
Minimum of 5, okay. That was one of our questions. Do we have any other questions for John at this time?
Let's see.
Maybe this is going to be collaborative, or I'm not sure, were you planning to come back, Mark?
So, John, there's nothing about the size of a park that would say it doesn't have to be, to fall under the rules?
No, there are some comments, there are some limitations. The concept of technical infeasibility might apply. That tends to arise a little bit more in a building, a facility environment. Technical infeasibility means that you would have to, for making a bathroom the proper size, you'd have to move a load-bearing wall or element. Then you're not required to do that. There is a terrain discussion regarding technical infeasibility, but we don't see it arise very often.
Okay, and so our 30-foot bluff is just not an extreme enough example of a challenging terrain or however they might define it.
Not from what we saw, and I don't want to speak for Smith Group, but we've seen accessible routes from bluffs that are much steeper and much higher than that.
Yeah.
And just on one last question, because the top part, you say maximum 2.0% cross slope, and so is that just kind of how the pathway might potentially?
Like swings going down like
Well,
that.
I mean,
It
it's going down here, but right, that's what I mean. Right, it's going down
It's the
here.
tilt of it across the path.
Just make sure I understand.
Cross slope is important.
Yeah.
You need cross slope so that you can have drainage. But if you're using a mobility device, the cross slope
It makes it harder.
risks you tipping off, so you don't really want that.
Okay, yeah.
Forgot that was up there. Can I answer any other questions?
I found this very helpful. Really helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Steve, can you
Thank you,
guide us on how these groups might collaborate or what we should expect?
Well, I was looking to maybe hear from the board tonight on what you would like. Of the 4 options that was in Smith Group's presentation, is there a desire to see all of them worked over in conjunction between Smith Group and WT to reach the right level of compliance, but also complete the mission of accessible route that works with the revetment? Are we looking to do that to all 4 options, or are we looking to do that to the 2 options we've talked about the most? Anything we want to exclude, because it's all just hours and dollars.
Well, so I think, John, you looked over Plan 1 and Plan 2, but these 2 new plans for 3 and 4, which were introduced tonight, were not in consideration. So we'd
Correct.
really just be looking at
Those two.
those
3 and 4,
2.
that would make sense to me.
Unless,
Eliminate 2.
well, 2, he says, isn't compliant as
2
it's
needs to
designed.
be reworked to get to compliance. Yes.
Right.
Should we pull those back up now?
Sure.
I'm comfortable eliminating 2 because of the significant upland park changes.
The extra excavation through the bluff, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw in this. I mean, I with the original 2022 plan, which was option 1, which is exiting at the north end. I don't know if this would make any difference to residents or not, but I guess I was a big proponent of adding the stairs for safety reasons. But I guess that is adding additional cost, and that seemed to be what was upsetting a lot of neighbors, that they felt it was overbuilding. I mean, and I guess I would feel that, take the chance of pulling the stairs and just having the pathway, if that makes anyone more comfortable.
Well, I think we're considering which plans WT should look at, not alterations to plans.
I'm just making that comment to
that's
the
fair.
other people
Yeah,
too.
I have a clarifying question for Smith Group. Of the 3 definitions of the mode of entry to Langdon, which one were you working off of?
So we worked off the trail
If you do it at the microphone, because anyone who's going to watch this video later won't hear you.
Yeah, so we worked off the trail definition, and the reason for that is that, as well as the different slopes that are allowed, you can have a certain slope at a certain percentage, and then a landing or respite, and then go up again. If you use the trail definition, there's a statement in the code that says that only 30% of the total trail length can be at that steeper slope. And that 30% of the total length does not apply to a beach access route or an outdoor recreation route. So if we were to go with like the outdoor recreation route, you can go up to 10%, but you're not limited to just the 30%. You have to have the necessary landings and things. So we use the trail definition because that one looked to be the one that was the most restrictive for the site, and we felt if we could get that to work, then we could get any of the other ones to work also.
But moving forward, you believe we shouldn't use the trail definition, is that correct?
I would certainly defer to someone, with the experience that John has, and I think and he acknowledged is it a beach access route or is it a outdoor recreation route that leads to a beach access route? Or, we'll work with whatever, but we're pretty confident that we could make any of these fit with the right slopes and the right landings and everything else.
Okay, that's helpful to hear. Would the retaining wall or the height of it alter significantly in any of these based on changing the definition to a beach access road?
No. So for concept 1 does not have a retaining wall. Concept 2 does have a retaining wall. Concept 3 does not, because we're floating above the bluff. And concept 4, which is the newer one, if we're not looking at it as a trail, because we did 4 using this definition of a trail, and then we can have, if our trail is longer, 30% of longer is also longer. And so that allowed us to put a little bit more at that steeper slope. But if we're not using the trail definition, then we would have to look at that. So I can't tell you exactly what the retaining wall would be in 4.
But it doesn't
would probably
jump the height 4 feet.
not be as tall as we were looking in 2, where it was 4 feet or also in places.
And is it safe to say that if we were to not use the trail kind of conditions and requirements, that option 4 wouldn't even be one that we explored?
I think option 4 still has some validity because it connects all the way to Sheridan Road, and it connects to the sidewalk, and it unifies the park, and it sort of creates that. So I think there's a design reason that you might well look at 4, but and it doesn't have the same kind of grading. So I think there's definitely a reason you might want to look at that. But
so it isn't strictly just for the math of 30% of a bigger number. There's other benefits.
There's other benefits too. We would be adding green where there currently is just a gravel vehicular road, but you still would have access to service the porta potty. So yes, 4 has some additional.
But doesn't 4 have the problem with the grate problem, that it just has
No.
too much of a...
No,
Okay,
that was
and then
2
I'm not
had
sure.
more of the.
Yeah,
right,
but
Well, it
then
depends
I'm-
on how you define it.
That's what I'm saying, right,
to-
'cause it's
So-
the excavator.
The big difference, though, I think, between 2 and 4 is 4 is more impactful in the park itself, in the upper park. It you now are adding more in a sidewalk situation, impervious, even pavers, of impervious surface to that park, which may not be desirable aesthetically.
Right.
And I understand the idea of connecting and,
The concern with Path 2 was the requirement of 4 feet of excavation through the bluff. The question is, can option 4 exist with less excavation than 4 feet? I think that's what we're looking for you to determine. At least that's what I'm looking for you to determine.
But I think he's saying that even in option 2, under the new parameters, we don't have to excavate to 4 feet.
We would have to look at that, and that would be something.
I'm not sure that's the case. But
So, no, 2, we could, what I would propose for 2 is that we would look at it with John and see if we can, what that change would be. If that's something that you ask us to go back, we could redo the grading and come back and tell you what that would be with a compliant.
Some of us, I'm not speaking for the group, but some of us liked option 2 and then option 4 because it was closer to what had been there in the past. But others of us were concerned about that 4-foot excavation. And so the question is.
And the significant upland park change in the retaining wall.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, so-
Okay. There are other issues as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank
but,
you.
But one of the questions is, can something there be done without the 4-foot excavation? That would be my question anyway.
Yeah, go with option 3.
And I think option 3 is an interesting choice. Absolutely.
Sorry.
I'm hearing the group say we do want them to discuss
Yeah.
all 4
That's
options.
what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions that the board has this evening for either of our groups that have presented?
Not right now, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just kind of bringing up I'm sorry, I'm just also kind of, no, and I thank you. I think both of you were really helpful and it's really clarified. But I guess partly what I'm hearing though is that we only, or at least right now, only option 1 meets the
Standard
standards.
as we know it.
And I guess I'm just back to that. Some people, we have spent a lot of money and time, and we are basically, this summer is over. If we had gone with option 1, we would have access to Langdon Row. We would have it would be done, it would be completed. And we're not, apparently, we're going to vote on this next month, and my understanding, and I just feel like we're just spending more time, more money, and residents still can't use Langdon and get down to the lake. So I'm just kind of, I'm just kind of bringing that up that and especially, we have, if we have changes or take away the stairs, we could be a really nice pathway with some benches on it, and that people could sit there and sit down and watch the sunrise over the lake, and with a beautiful watching butterflies perhaps, and birding and birds flying about. And more and more we talk about this and keep going on it. None of that's going to happen. So, and we're just spending more money and allowing more invasives to take root. So,
Was there any questions left for our consultants?
Thank you very much.
You have another for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I clarify
You
my
sure can.
comment?
Yeah.
Yes, out of the ones we saw, we thought only 1 plan was compliant, but they hadn't seen our plan review yet either.
Yeah.
It's very possible that all 4 of the items that you're looking at with tweaks could be IAC compliant. So I wouldn't rule anything out.
Thank you. But I have heard you say that some of the questions around, is it practical to design towards accessible standards without pursuing compliance? You've clarified your position on that. So that is one thing that we have rolled out. Thank you again. And
Thank
yes,
you.
so
Thank you.
I think, board, it's fully possible that we could look at 4 ADA compliant solutions at the next meeting. And I think we've had some good explanation of what those could and couldn't, the detail and some of the landscaping around that. We encourage folks to continue to right to public comment, right to the board. Share with us your reactions to these, and stay tuned. My agenda has long since been pushed aside on my desk of paperwork. That brings us to, again, thank you guys tremendously, and no offense taken if you would like to leave. New business tonight. Steve has already teed it up, so are we?
And again,
gonna go
before
straight to
everybody
motion?
leaves, the beach bash is Saturday night. Please come.
How many
Thank you.
commissioners are going to go rogue this evening?
Okay, I move to approve ordinances 2023-07, 2023-08, 2023-09, ordinances approving, authorizing the disposal of certain surplus property owned by the Wilmette Park District.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Discussion? Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Leahy?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Goble?
Yes.
Commissioner Duffy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowskis?
Yes.
Ordinances are approved.
Thank you. Before we move to closed session, we will direct our crowd of public to the wonderful information in the back of our packet. Our public is exiting for those watching us on television.
I just
There
feel,
is a
Patrick,
tremendous
this was
amount of
stolen
work
from you.
highlighted in the back of the packet, which Patrick is opening up to start to present. Thank you to the various departments that presented, that submitted their work for the month, as well as the financials and everything else that went into that. And so, as always, thanks to
Can I
staff.
also-
And the Lakeview Center.
Can I also I was going to also make, Thursday morning, I went for a very early run, and we ran through Gilson, and we stopped and went up onto the deck at the Lakeview Center, and it is lovely there. So if anyone, people are here, but I highly recommend go and sit on, and there are chairs there now. I would like to see benches, though, too.
The Lakeview
But-
Center is
but
amazing.
it's really
I
lovely.
agree.
Beautiful.
So I'm gonna point out really quickly, I was called today to compliment Christy Solberg on the work over at Maple Park where they added the younger age group apparatus to play on. That park is even more frequented because it applies to a broader range of age group now. So I was quite surprised that he even knew your name. And I loved it because he knew your name, that you were in charge of the project, and he called me to thank you for that. Great job.
Your response time, Christy, everything. You engaged the local residents. It was amazing. Thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, I want to add at the front of the packet, there is a long list of coming attractions, including activities through September.
Is there a beach bash coming up?
I've heard that. I can't confirm.
I hope it's on Saturday night.
I should also call out for the Don't Quit Your Day Job Music Festival.
Last weekend?
Last
Yep.
weekend. I was there for the first hour, and I said, Jason is really a Renaissance man. So, I know he's not here, but he's doing okay.
Well, in the spirit of being able to attend the beach bash and being awake by that point on Saturday, shall we proceed with our meeting? Do
Yes,
have
I
a
will
motion
make
for the
that
next order of
motion
business?
after I point out a small concern that, Sheila seems to not be interested in sitting next to Lindsay and Christy. All of a sudden, she's gone. But with that, yes, someone was in your spot before. With that, I'd like to move to adjourn to closed session for the discussion of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee of the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the district or against legal counsel to determine its validity in accordance with Section 2(1) of the Open Meetings Act, and to review the minutes of prior meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act for the purpose of review, approval, or release of such minutes in accordance with Section 2(21) of the Open Meetings Act.
A second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Leahy?
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Goble?
Yes.
Commissioner Duffy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowskis?
Yes.
We move to closed
We'll move to closed session.